Thanks for watching. This is Sarai and Ajai. This is Identity Theft Documentary number 9, and I have a few subject matters to touch today. Today is May 23rd, 2017. The time is 9:51 a.m. I want to talk about a little bit about my experience when I became a target individual. I call it TI. And it is unbelievable experience. I wish this not on my worst enemy, because it is adverse discrimination that you never hear in court, hardly ever win because of the adverse in the litigation process of it. And the retaliation when you file a complaint could get your family and you killed, because once they have a liability, and it's an authentic liability, to subside their litigation lawsuits, they forge your identity. That's what I learned through my experience. On May 5th, I was at the Position building. I made an outside call. I arrived early. I'm in the lobby. I wanted to inquire some information. And a telephone representative answered. It was a normal procedure of her oratorical abilities as a telephone representative. It was unprofessional. But I was cordial, and she said she was going to transfer me. Well, we were disconnected. I always was suspicious of the conspiracy of my calls were being intercepted, or the incoming calls being intercepted, but I couldn't prove it. This time it was confirmed. This has been going on for years, and I just couldn't prove it. My phone went totally dead. I had no frequency signals at all. I tried 3 times to dial the number again. No sound, nothing. As if this particular individual had hacked into the actual app itself. I don't know if they're capable of doing this. I'm sure they probably are if they're good hackers. And it went totally dead. I tried the 4th time, I got through. And this time, it sounded as the company would have the correct oratorical ability and professionalism. And she was able to handle the call herself instead of trying to transfer me. That was another cue right there. Usually when I call there, they never transfer me. And I was really upset. I knew I became a target individual. It was very hard for me to prove it until May 5th of 2017 at approximately 10:30 or 11 o'clock. It was around that time, somewhere around there, that this call I placed, that this occurred. It was very, very obvious. Usually it happens in my home, but they intercepted that call in that building. Which goes into my isolationism with my United States Postal Service certified mail that is constantly being returned to me when I know previously those addresses, they were accepting them. And I was sending it to other parties or government agencies I have one now that's sitting in limbo someplace, and it has no connections to anyone. I placed the certified order at one postal service location. It winds up going to another one near here where I live. Makes no sense. I had the same problem with 2 other certified letters months earlier. And now it's in limbo in their destination. Isn't that strange? I did put in a complaint about this. I'm having a problem with the United States Postal Service. I'm not sure what's going on with the employees, but the problem is they keep saying they can't prove it. They can't prove the person that's personating me is me. I have authentic identification. I should be left alone. They're sabotaging my information because of their liability. Now, United States Postal Service is what they call a quasi-government. It's not part of the government. They have their own personal director. It's similar to a company. It's not under the presidential branches like the other departments. This is handled separately. It's an actual, they have board of directors, they elect board of directors and so forth. I did some digging into it when I started having these problems. So they're kind of quasi-government, but they're federal employees. And I'm finding out I never applied as a federal employee, and never applied or never worked in government. But because we're taxpayer dollars, their names should be posted as employees, which I did find. But they can't prove it, and they're targeting me because of it. In June of 2015, I had new neighbors that moved upstairs, and they wanted me to give them all my IDs and my personal paperwork and leave and live on the streets. I am not kidding you. And I told them, no, I'm not giving you anything. Something about they wanted to go to medical school. I'm not giving you anything. I'm on my right paperwork. On my social medias, I have my group pictures, my individual pictures. I still look like my pictures, especially my corduroy picture. I just had shorter hair then because of my illness then. I was in and out of the hospital then. They want me to give up all my IDs, Social Security card, birth certificate, and go live on the streets because they told me they know that they were terrorists. I didn't know they were terrorists. And they were going to stop everything coming to me because I'm on my right paperwork. But they can't prove it. They can't prove this person is me. That's the key. That's why I'm having these problems. They know I have authentic information, but I'm being denied. Another game they play with this is always a mistake. When they make these mistakes, these hiring mistakes, housing mistakes, anything, if I go in for some type of service, it's always an identity mistake. What is the probability? And I'm asking this question. What is the probability that the same person having the same problem over and over again as a mistake? I lost my career over this over and over and over again mistake. They know these people wasn't who they were. They're using forged or fraudulent identity. I never lost my ID. One of my IDs was stolen in my whole entire life. And they came through the window, it was already expired. But I had a copy of it. They didn't know I had a dupe copy of it because of the change of address. So the photo still exists. So I'm just curious of what is going on. It happened here in June of 2015. And then the people I suspected, they jumped up and moved that week when it occurred. And I'm having the same problem with the United States Postal Service. They're targeting me, or their investigator, United States Postal Service, law enforcement, or law enforcement agencies, some of them are claiming I'm fake when I have the appropriate identification. They could do a forensic biometrics. You see I have no missing fingertips. You see this? I have no missing fingertips. You see my copper tone color. No missing fingertips now. So how did it get to it? I never worked there. So I became a target individual because they can't prove it, and I have a liability. So I became a target because they could be sued for discriminating against me over my paperwork. That's redistribution of wealth. Even though domestically, the people, these special interest groups or people who are supporting these people here on domestically, and I don't think it's always an illegal issue. I'm having a strong domestic problem with this. They have their own birth rights, ID, social security number, birth certificates, state identification card, state driver's license. Why do they have to be on my paperwork? That's the question. If they made poor choices on the ID, they feel they have the right to supersede your paperwork when you don't have no connections to them. This is basically what's going on. They damaged or irresponsibility on their paperwork or have bad credit report. They feel they have the rights to forge you. They're telling, because I have this problem, I have the right to supersede your rights, even though they're protected under the civil rights. I'm not protected. So I'm having the violations of my civil rights. And because I'm a victim, someone told me yesterday, they shouted from the parking lot, because I'm a victim, I have no rights. Literally. They see it as I have no rights, and they feel that I should be used as a quota because of the liability. I have a strong liability, and I was being used, my paperwork was being used as a quota filler. It doesn't matter the race, because of my liability of a civil rights violations. That means we never had any rights in the first place. That's basically what he said. I quote, you all never had any rights in the first place. And it was concealed. And I'm getting suspicious of that too. My case, I have no due process or equal protection rights because of this method. And when I file that complaint, it causes them to react negative towards me over the liability. Not to stop it, but to facilitate it as if I'm as adverse discrimination. It hit every civil rights category. And the civil rights violation. And that's another fascinating issue by itself. It hits your original birth sex, is always adverse. Your gender identity, your sexual orientation is always the opposite. They target you on the opposite of what you are. Your housing, they target your disability, the employments, your religion. They target your color and your DNA definition and your education. They claim I have none. They claim I'm not the right person. They claim I'm a dropout. And I have a birth certificate. My birth certificate matched my transcript number. I have a high school diploma and I have a college education as well. So now this is what's really getting interesting. Why do it? Because I have an authentic liability out there, I have no protection rights. They have rights. They supersede my rights to conspiratize. The conspiracy behind this cruel and unusual conspiracy to conceal the civil rights violation by using your paperwork as a quota when they have their own paperwork. They could get the job under their own paperwork. I'm having sexual harassment problems. They see you as a whore with this method. And because I have a higher education, secondary education, I'm looked upon as a threat. So therefore, they forged my paperwork behind that as well. Remember, it's always a mistake. It's always a mistaken identity. You can wind up in a homeless shelter over their mistaken identity over and over again. That's what happened to me in my apartment. I lost my apartment because of this issue. They claimed some woman was me with a pudge nose and don't even look like me. Not even close. The forensic biometric, she's taller. She had 3 kids. I have no kids. And because they have children, I have to be displaced or I have to be unemployed, even though they have their own identity. I have no rights according to them. They supersede my rights. And what was told to me yesterday, I want to just commit suicide. It's slavery. It's basically intangible slavery, intangible kidnapping. My information being intangible kidnapping because they can't prove it. So I'm being targeted because they can't prove it. And their needs supersede my protected rights and my legal rights for due process. Basically, and they threaten to lock me up because I possess my correct paperwork. I will be denied service, which I have, because I possess correct paperwork. And they can't prove it. Even though they should be the one they're targeting, I'm the one that's the victim. They don't see me as a victim. I'm the terrorist cell with them on my paperwork. I have no rights. Literally, I have no rights. Because they can't prove, the special interest groups or their advocacy groups can't prove they're the original. They don't match anything, but then yet I get targeted for it. There's always a mistake. Once it happens, they do something bad to me and then they say, it was a mistake. It's always a mistake. What is the probability that the same person having the same mistake over and over again? If it wasn't a mistake, it only should happen once. This is a continuous violation problem as a target individual. Have a blessed day.